আসসালামু আলাইকুম ওয়া রাহমাতুল্লাহি ওয়া বারাকাতুহু। আলহামদুলিল্লাহ রাব্বিল আলামিন ওয়াসসালাতু ওয়াসসালামু আলা রাসূলিল কারীম আম্মা বা'দ। সম্মানিত সুধী দর্শকবৃন্দ, আপনারা বিশ্বের যে যেখান থেকে আমাদের সাথে যুক্ত হয়েছেন এবং যুক্ত হবেন, আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আমি মুস্তাফিজুর রহমান খান। গবেষণাধর্মী প্রতিষ্ঠান কোয়েস্ট আয়োজিত আজকের এই আন্তর্জাতিক সেমিনারের বিষয় হচ্ছে দি COVID-19 ইম্প্যাক্ট অন ইসলামিক ব্যাংকস ইন বাংলাদেশ, চ্যালেঞ্জেস অ্যান্ড দ্য ওয়ে ফরওয়ার্ড। এখানে উল্লেখ করা যেতে পারে যে আসলে করোনা পরবর্তী বিশ্বে অনেক মানুষ জব হারা হয়ে যাবে এবং সেই সময় বিশ্বের অর্থনৈতিক একটা বড় পরিবর্তন আসবে এবং সেই পরিবর্তনের সাথে কিভাবে খাপ খেয়ে ইসলামিক ব্যাংক গুলো তাদের কার্যক্রমকে আরো ত্বরান্বিত করতে পারে সেই বিষয়ে আলোচনার জন্য আমরা মূলত এই আয়োজন করেছি। আমাদের এই প্রোগ্রাম শুরু হবে কালামে হাকিম থেকে তেলাওয়াতের মাধ্যমে। প্রথমে আমি কালামে হাকিম থেকে তেলাওয়াত করার জন্য অনুরোধ করছি কারি সৈয়দ আহমেদ।
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان لا تطغوا في الميزان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان صدق الله العظيم.
অনেক ধন্যবাদ কারি সৈয়দ আহমদ আজমিকে সুন্দর তেলাওয়াতের জন্য। আমাদের আজকের এই ইন্টারন্যাশনাল সেমিনারের বিষয় হচ্ছে দি কোভিড-19 ইম্প্যাক্ট অন ইসলামিক ব্যাংকস ইন বাংলাদেশ, চ্যালেঞ্জ অ্যান্ড দ্য ওয়ে ফরওয়ার্ড। আমাদের আজকের এই সেমিনারের যিনি সভাপতিত্ব করছেন তিনি হচ্ছেন ডক্টর আবু ওমর ফারুক আহমেদ, অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর ইসলামিক ইকোনমিক্স ইনস্টিটিউট, কিং আব্দুল আজিজ ইউনিভার্সিটি, KSA, এবং প্রেসিডেন্ট সেন্টার ফর সাস্টেনেবল ডেভেলপমেন্ট অফ মুসলিম ওয়ার্ল্ড। আমাদের আজকের এই সেমিনারে চিফ গেস্ট হিসেবে আছেন প্রফেসর ডক্টর হাবিব আহমেদ, শারজা চেয়ার ইন ইসলামিক ল অ্যান্ড ফাইন্যান্স বিজনেস স্কুল, দুরহাম ইউনিভার্সিটি, UK। আজকের এই সেমিনারে যিনি কিনোট স্পিকার তিনি হচ্ছেন প্রফেসর ডক্টর কবির হাসান, প্রফেসর অফ ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ ইকোনমিক্স অ্যান্ড ফাইন্যান্স, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ নিউ অরলিন্স, USA। আজকের এই প্রোগ্রাম যিনি উদ্বোধন ঘোষণা করবেন তিনি হচ্ছেন প্রফেসর ডক্টর আতাউর রহমান বেলাল, অ্যাকাউন্টিং ম্যানেজমেন্ট স্কুল, দি ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ শেফিল্ড, UK। আমাদের এই সেমিনারে আজকে যে সকল স্বনামধন্য আলোচক বৃন্দ আলোচনা রাখবেন তাদের মধ্যে রয়েছেন প্রফেসর মুজাহিদুল ইসলাম স্যার, ব্যাংকিং অ্যান্ড ইন্স্যুরেন্স ডিপার্টমেন্ট, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ ঢাকা। এছাড়া রয়েছেন মিস্টার জাফর আলম, ম্যানেজিং ডিরেক্টর অ্যান্ড CEO, কারেন্ট চার্জ, বাংলাদেশ কমার্স ব্যাংক লিমিটেড, ঢাকা, বাংলাদেশ। এছাড়া রয়েছেন ইসলামী ব্যাংক বাংলাদেশ লিমিটেড থেকে মোহাম্মদ ওমর ফারুক খান, অ্যাডিশনাল ম্যানেজিং ডিরেক্টর, ইসলামী ব্যাংক বাংলাদেশ লিমিটেড, ঢাকা, বাংলাদেশ। আরো রয়েছেন ডক্টর শফিকুর রহমান, ভাইস প্রেসিডেন্ট, অস্ট্রেলিয়ান একাডেমি অফ বিজনেস লিডারশিপ, সিডনি, অস্ট্রেলিয়া। আমাদের সাথে আরো যুক্ত থাকার কথা ছিল আল আরাফা ব্যাংকের ডেপুটি ম্যানেজিং ডিরেক্টর মিস্টার শফিকুর রহমান সাহেবের, কিন্তু উনার জরুরি একটা প্রোগ্রাম থাকার কারণে উনি আমাদের সাথে যুক্ত হতে পারছেন। তো এই হল আমাদের বিষয় এবং আলোচক বৃন্দ। আমি মাননীয় সভাপতির কাছে সবিনয়ে অনুমতি প্রার্থনা করছি সামনের দিকে এগিয়ে যাওয়ার জন্য।
প্লিজ কিপ গোয়িং।
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার। আমাদের আজকের এই সেমিনার সম্পর্কে সংক্ষেপে শুধু এটুকু বলে রাখি যে আমরা প্রত্যেকে আমাদের ফেসবুক ওয়ালে এটা শেয়ার করবো যেন বাকি সবাই আমাদের সাথে যারা যুক্ত আছেন তারা সবাই যেন শুনতে এবং দেখতে পান। আর আরেকটি বিষয় আমি আপনাদের কাছে সবিনয় অনুরোধ করছি, সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের প্রত্যেকের আলোচনার বিষয় এবং সময় নির্ধারিত আছে। আমরা নির্দিষ্ট বিষয়ে এবং নির্দিষ্ট সময়ের মধ্যে আমাদের আলোচনা শেষ করব। আমরা আমাদের সমস্ত প্রোগ্রামটাকে একটি নির্দিষ্ট সময়ের মধ্যে শেষ করতে চাই। আপনাদের এই ব্যাপারে সহযোগিতা কামনা করছি বিনীতভাবে। তো আমরা এবার প্রোগ্রাম শুরুর দিকে চলে যাচ্ছি। আমরা কিনোট স্পিকারের কিনোট শোনার আগে আমরা প্রোগ্রামের উদ্বোধন আমরা সেরে আসি। এ পর্যায়ে প্রোগ্রামের উদ্বোধন ঘোষণা করছেন প্রফেসর আতাউর রহমান বেলাল স্যার, অ্যাকাউন্টিং ম্যানেজমেন্ট স্কুল, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ শেফিল্ড, UK।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan, my brothers and sisters. Welcome. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Well, the main aim of this inaugural speech is to offer my support for this great event. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to say a few words at the start. I feel honored, but also feel rather underqualified to speak on the topic of COVID and Islamic banking, neither of which is an area of expertise for me. My knowledge in this area is rather limited. However, I'm sure the learned speakers would help us to overcome these limitations by a series of thought-provoking talks and discussions as the program proceeds. In this brief speech, I would like to draw attention to three important issues. One is the phenomenon of coming out of this COVID lockdown situation and a craving around the world, including various organizations and communities, to go back to some kind of normality. Number two, as we are coming out of the COVID lockdown situation, its impact and particularly the significant impact it is having on the marginalized part of the society. And here is, we can see the social role of organizations, including Islamic banks. And number three is an urge to the participants to stimulate a discussion involving a fresher look at the purpose of the organization and perhaps resetting it. That talk is going around as we speak. No doubt we are going through a period of nervousness and uncertainty. And as I indicated earlier, there is also desperateness in governments and organizations around the world to go back to so-called normality coming out of the COVID lockdown situation, which is understandable as COVID creates significant economic impact in addition to the health impact that we are all feeling now. In both aspects, the impact is generally said to be severe and significant in the poor and vulnerable parts of the society, and the need to be protected at this difficult time. And this is where the social justice role of governments and organizations comes into play, and Islamic banks are no exception to that. As compared to traditional commercial banks, Islamic banks are viewed as organizations with a purpose, which views riba as inherently exploitative. Islamic Bank aspires to work towards a more just and fairer society. In a country like Bangladesh, where social security net is fragile and the capacity of the government is limited, business organizations are expected to fill the gap. As Rajendra Pachauri, the previous chairman of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, as famously known, said, a business cannot succeed in a society which fails. I would like to draw attention of this forum to the social role of Islamic banks and the contribution it can make towards the protection of the marginalized parts of the society who are said to be hardly hit by COVID crisis. In addition to the various challenges thrown at us by COVID, it has also opened up some opportunities for reflection on whether going back to business as usual is the only way. Such calls on resetting the purpose of corporations is coming out from World Economic Forum, but it has been preceded by the work of the British Academy Project on Purpose of Modern Corporations and the revised statement from the Business Roundtable consisting of 180 CEOs of influential US corporations. Basically, the purpose of corporations as the maximization of the shareholders' wealth are being questioned. And there is a talk of more inclusive, stakeholder-based corporations. As a purposeful organization, I would urge the Islamic banks to rise up to this occasion and be part of rebuilding a more just and fairer society which Maqasid al-Sharia demands. I wish the event a great success. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you, Mr. Ataur Rahman Belal sir, for your nice inaugural speech. We're going to Mr. Dr. Kabir Hassan to hear the keynote of the seminar. I would like to request Mr. Dr. Kabir Hassan to present his keynote. Sir, please.
Assalamu alaikum. So actually I
Assalamu
made a presentation and I do not know how much time do I have, but whenever you feel that I need to stop, just tell me, okay? So,
Sir, 15 minutes.
okay. So you know about the COVID-19. It's very unprecedented, unknown in the human history. So the pandemic has not forced to create a new normal only to people inhabited in a specific geographic location. It is all over the world. And the time will tell. We do not know when it's going to end, and it's very unknown. Now, it has impacted not only financial institutions and the different parts of the economy all over the world. The financial system operated in countries where physical involvement of human was required to most of the activities, though depending on the jurisdiction, some adopted technology to provide different financial products and services. Now, what are the negative impact on COVID-19 on the economy? Of course, it is unfolding every day. The negative impact on it is yet to be fully comprehended as the damage is still going on. And it is anybody's beyond imagination, and the financial system plays a vital role in assisting government and private sector to mitigate the damage it has caused politically, socially, economically to the individuals due to illiquidity issue it has created, as well as major economic activities has come to a halt. It also has caused irrecoverable adverse impact on individuals, companies, and governments. And there is also the domino effect that made it created more demand for alternative financial products and services, and it warrants financial system to operate effectively and fast to provide remedy to uplift their situation, of which the root cause is due to lack of money to fulfill their needs. So, of course, we have this fear of human lives. We have lockdown, economic activity stopped, companies and self-employed lost income, no money for essentials, and government has to intervene. So the way the government has intervened all over the world, including Bangladesh, so you have the fiscal measures, the government spent a lot of money. The monetary and macro financial measures, the government has given different types of incentive to the banking system and to the industry. And there is also some exchange rate and balance of payment measures. Recently, Bangladesh got $732 million from IMF in order to overcome these COVID-related problems. Now, when you talk about the fiscal measures, the emergency pandemic response, like in the United States, they have passed a bill $2.2 trillion. They were given direct money to every individual in the United States. Also, there is a unemployment benefit. They were given money to the small business and so on. I'm sure the similar type of activities, very similar package is being done all over the world, including Bangladesh. Now, when you come to the monetary and macro financial measures, of course, the Central Bank of Bangladesh probably has reduced the rate and repo and different ways of injecting money to the system. And it is also asking to give moratorium, not forcing the small, medium enterprises to pay off the upcoming loan payment and so on. And also, in many cases, there are also tax benefit given. Now, when it comes to exchange rate, balance of payment, the exchange rate and balance of payment measures for some countries like Armenia, the exchange rate has been allowed to adjust flexibly and appreciated to the pre-pandemic level against the US dollar with no balance of payment or capital control measures have been adopted. So in Bangladesh, fortunately, I just got the news that their foreign reserve is all-time high just 2 or 3 days ago. So in that sense, about $34 billion, we have more than 8 months of imports. So some way we can weather the problem that we are facing. Now, among all this spending, where does the Islamic financial system come into play? Actually, this is also a test case for Islamic finance to show that it is actually a value-based alternative to conventional finance. And you already know what Islamic finance does: prohibition of riba, lawful activities, ethical and moral values, profit sharing, prohibition of gambling, prohibition of speculation. Now, Islamic financial system giving a loan with a view of making profit is prohibited. We know that. It is structured using Islamic commercial contracts based on sale, lease, partnership, where an underlying asset or real economic activity is used as a means to generate profit. Having said this problem that we are facing is not only a supply side problem, it is also a demand side problem. It started from the supply side exogenous shock, but it folded into the endogenous demand side shock as well. So supply into demand, demand into supply. So the whole chain reaction is happening. Because of this, real sector is impacted, and Islamic banking or Islamic finance given financing to this real sector. If the real sector suffers, there also becomes the question of profit loss sharing. Now it will be a real test whether Islamic finance or Islamic banking really following the profit loss sharing principle. And we'll see how it goes. Now, of course, it's not the, whenever I talk about Islamic finance, there's a commercial side to it, banking, insurance, and so on. But there is also the social finance. I think nowadays, Islamic bank has to follow through the conventional, we do not have a separate banking law in Bangladesh. So whatever this Central Bank of Bangladesh provides guideline, they have to be within this guideline, they have to follow through. But there are certain things Islamic banks can do. They have this doubtful income, they have the zakat account, but you have to be careful what they can do with the doubtful income. They are not supposed to use the doubtful income to help their customers, because that will defeat the whole purpose of having this doubtful income. So if some way the Islamic banks in Bangladesh can use, for example, Islamic Bangladesh doubtful income can be used for the customers and stakeholders, let's say Al Arafa Islamic Bank, and Al Arafa Islamic Bank's doubtful income can be used for the benefit of Islamic banks. So there has to be some sort of coordination among the different Islamic banks in order to use in a Sharia compliant way this doubtful income. Now the zakat, same way. Zakat you cannot use in order to benefit your own stakeholders. It can be used the stakeholders for the other companies or other banks or general public and so on. So these are some of the Sharia issues. The Sharia board has to really deal with this, how to take care of this thing. Now, the most important thing that really Islamic finance can play a big role is the social finance. We have the sadaqah, we have the waqf, we have zakat, and the zakat, the concept of zakat has been also brought into United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, and they want to integrate the Islamic social finance in order to eradicate poverty and so on. And right now, a lot of people have become overnight poor, and we have to take care of these people. And Islamic banks can probably use their, this foundation money or the trust fund for doubtful income for these activities. Now, there has to be studies done too. The scholars should come back, to study what will be the impact of this COVID on Islamic finance industry and what will be the future direction of this thing. So one important reason why this study is important is because it is believed that COVID-19 will prove the practical difference between Islamic and conventional financial system. So we always claim that we are different, but this is the time to show that we are really different. Year 2008 and 9, our Islamic finance industry was not impacted by that much because we are not, by its very nature, the business model was different. We are not into structured finance. So we are not really impacted, and the size of the industry was small. Because of this reason, we probably were saved. But the Islamic finance industry is about 2.2 trillion, is growing. So now we have to really show our real fit, that actually we are really value-based finance. So advantage Islamic financial system provides in terms of risk sharing by using underlying asset and real economic activities to make profit. Now, Islamic banking differs from conventional banks. Of course, if a moratorium for a period is granted to customers of an Islamic bank, no extra charge could be taken. So right now, a small business is suffering, our RMG sector is suffering. So because of this, now Islamic banking from the Board of Governors standpoint, and also in conjunction with the central bank, whether they can give this relief, and if they give this relief, they cannot really charge extra. If they do, that will be tantamount to riba. So we have to really take care of this very carefully. How about the takaful? Demand for claims has increased. As a result, the surplus in the risk fund of the contributors will go down. Liquidity takaful institution might be affected. As a result, there will be less money to be invested, slowing down the growth of Islamic capital market. Re-takaful companies will also be affected. Granting delay to pay takaful contribution could be one of the way of going. Now, Islamic money market and ICM, Islamic capital market, will be affected as well. If for example, the Bangladesh Islamic finance or Islamic stocks are mostly dominated by Islamic banks. If we look at the Islamic banks, stock value is going down. It's not because of non-performing loans, but non-performing loans will increase. As a result, their stock was also affected. At this stage, I think we should really look at very carefully that these two accounting measures they use, like profit equalization reserve, investment risk reserve, and those reserves should be used opportune time in order to have the stakeholders of the Islamic banks in Bangladesh. Now, social finance, as I said, this is the time to use social finance, and some way we have to integrate this thing into the commercial finance so that we can alleviate the logjam and the poverty and the suffering that people are having right now. Now, that is sector in Bangladesh, unfortunately, is not organized. Zakat we give, there is no organized sector. We really do not know how much zakat we can collect and distribute in Bangladesh. There was no authoritative study done in Bangladesh. So I hope this will be a starting point that the Islamic banks in conjunction can do a study, can support a study to do a baseline study, how much zakat can be collected in Bangladesh, because this is a measure, and it's not only it's part of our iman, I mean article of faith. And if we can really collect zakat and distribute this, and we have seen from the Islamic history that poverty can be alleviated very quickly. Now, impact of COVID-19 on Islamic finance is not uniform in all sectors, components of Islamic finance and across the countries. As such, case study approach would be useful to comprehend the impact of the pandemic to specific products and specific countries. The current trend shows towards a virtual economy. There will be new normal, rules and regulations required for the operation of financial system and protect consumers need to be enacted not only for the domestic financial market, but for the cross-border transaction as well. Now, portfolio diversification. The lesson of COVID has taught us the world is also worth looking at. So portfolio diversity is a risk mitigating technique used in business transaction, which is always spoken about but failed to implement at the government level. Now we have to diversification not on the capital market, we also have to diversify our economy as well. Like for example, Saudi Arabia, for the first time, they have only two major sources of income, oil and the religious tourism. But because of their oil revenue has gone down, for the first time, they have increased their VAT tax from 5% to 15%. Same problem is happening everywhere. Now, what are some of the recommendations? Actually, I'm also on the board of the AOFI, Ethics and Governance Board, and we're trying to come up with a statement. And the statement, just I want to share a few of it. The Board of Directors of Islamic Financial Institutions shall review the business continuity and operational risk management plans. So here comes the point where the relationship banking is become more important than transactional banking. So you really need to know each of our customers very well. The bank, from the board side, from their executive side, from the employee side, has to get together with their clients and try to work out something so that they can stay afloat with the business. If they fail, they will take the business, the Islamic bank and the other banks as well down with them. Now, merge Islamic commercial finance and the social finance. And fortunately, Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited has this RDS big program. So this is the some way you probably can integrate, your surplus fund, your zakat fund. You can also have cash walk-off. You can combine all those things in order to help the people in general and also the clients as well. Now, the crisis management, each bank, I'm sure by this time you have a managing director, he can tell that the board has probably come up with a crisis management team, how to help the struggling industry, because this pandemic, at the end of the day, when the pandemic is over, there will be a certain number of business will fail. Now you have to have a alternative plan B. If that fails, how you will be able to stay afloat, because if they fail, you have huge money invested within this business. And of course, our RMG sector is affected, and it's a big sector, and a lot of banks are giving their loans to this RMG sector. So we really have to look at and work in conjunction with the government as well too. So it is not the bank itself can withhold or withstand this problem. It has to be collective effort by the government, the banking sector, the central bank, and so on. Now the Sharia also have to play real istihad in this trying time, what is applicable and what is permissible from the Sharia standpoint and what is not. The Sharia scholars really have to give a guidance by this time, in terms of doubtful income, in terms of delaying payment, and whether the any extra according to what I understand will be riba. So how you can play with this thing, Sharia scholars have to play a very dynamic role during this time. Now the communication has to be very direct with all the stakeholders, because this time the communication is really important. The level of uncertainty that is happening because of pandemic, somehow we have to reduce it, and only way it has to be more open, more transparent. Unfortunately, Islamic finance.
Dr. Kabir has taken, sir.
For
Sir, only 1 minute.
Okay. Islamic finance industry unfortunately has been very non-transparent. Now it's the time for them to be transparent. You have to make sure the right of stakeholders of Islamic financial institution has to be secured from different mechanisms that you have. And finally, the reality of COVID-19 is a multidimensional crisis. As such, research needs to be carried out to understand its impact and the new opportunity it has created. Electronic commerce platforms have become popular due to crisis, and the trend is towards creation of a digital or virtual economy. However, to pay for digital or virtual economy, investment is required to build the infrastructure for that, like having proper internet connection and gadgets required. The undeniable truth is there are two sides for every coin. Even for this crisis, there is need to find opportunities. Hopefully, there is no doubt that every crisis will provide opportunity to grow, and the power to identify them lies in positive thinking fused with innovation. So we really need to learn how to innovate in order to withstand the crisis and move forward. Thank you very much.
Mr. Umar Faruq Khan.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, As-salatu As-salamu ala Sayyidul Mursaleen wa alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Online International Seminar, the COVID-19 Impact of Islamic Banks in Bangladesh, Challenge and Way Forward, organized by Quest, Honorable Chairman of the session of the seminar, Janab Dr. Abu Umar Faruq Ahmed, Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, learned and respected keynote speaker, Professor Dr. M. Kabir Hassan, distinguished discussant and other guests. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. First of all, I give heartfelt thanks to the for organizing such kind of seminar on the contemporary issue. I would like to say in the preface that in World Health Organization first declared COVID-19 World Health Emergency in January 2020, 2020. The infection has more than 6.5 million people in 188 countries. More than 80 countries have closed borders, ordered business into close. The UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, its preliminary estimate indicates a shortfall of $2 trillion global income. The IMF estimates that the increase on borrowing by governments globally will rise them 3.7% of global GDP in 2019 to 9.9% in 2020. The World Bank said in April commodity markets outlook that this pandemic has driven most commodity prices down and is expected to result in substantially lower price over 2020. According to World Bank, global remittance are projected to decline sharply by about 20% in 2020. Bangladesh's major export destination are some of the countries hardest hit by COVID-19. The overall export of Bangladesh fell by 13.09% to $20.49 billion in the first 10 months of 2019 and 2020 financial year. This downward trend might accelerate in the coming days in the face of cancellation of further export orders. Now I am coming my discussion the impact of COVID-19 Islamic finance industry. The negative impact of COVID-19 on the falling sector or the indicator of the Islamic banks industries, deposit, investment, assets, investment deposit ratio, liquidity, import, export, remittance, income, or investment income, operative income. Deposit impact. Deposit is the lifeblood of any financial institution. To cover up the financial crisis, depositors will withdraw the deposits, which is very expected in such economic stagnant situations. Investment portfolio of the banking industry is expected to witness big impact due to COVID-19 issue. It is apprehended that demand for banks financing to business will be huge, as the affected industries will require additional funds to boost up their business. Meanwhile, the government has declared different stimulus package. Assets quality of the bank apprehended to be impacted highly due to COVID-19 pandemic. Over the period, non-performing investment of the industry has been increasing trend. Moreover, Bangladesh Bank instructed all banks to stop negative classification of investment up to June 2020, and Bangladesh Bank Association and assets quality of the bank is apprehended to be impacted highly due to COVID-19 pandemic. Over the period, non-performing investment of the industry has been increasing trend. Moreover, Bangladesh Bank instructed all banks to stop negative classification of investment up to June 2020, and Bangladesh Bank Association and Association of Bankers Bangladesh are pursuing the competent authority to get relaxation extended to up to December 2020. Investment deposit ratio. Bangladesh Bank has revised investment deposit limit, exceeding it at 92% for Islamic banks. Driven by the pressure in investment demand in coming days, IDR, that is investment deposit ratio of banks, will certainly rise substantially. It is expected that the investment under stimulus package will be excluded for IDR calculations. Liquidity management in coming months will be a challenge task for banks. Due to effect of COVID-19 and result economic downturn the world, the fund flow will be reduced. On the other hand, as the government declared, stimulus will be arranged from the bank's own fund, so bank need additional fund to implement this. It is likely that Bangladesh Bank may revise CRR, that is cash reserve requirement, and steady liquidity reserve to ensure optimal flow of liquidity to the market. Import of the banks has already been decreased due to disruption of trade business and closure of banks for last 2 months. Due to lockdown in source countries, import of the different Commodities has slowed down, which will continue in next few months. Export sector of the country has already witnessed negative growth, following global shutdown caused by COVID-19. Already most of the business have suspended their business operation due to lockdown. Export-oriented industry are losing their confirmed orders as the foreign counterparts business also stopped. Foreign remittance. Due to COVID-19 pandemic globally, expatriate Bangladeshis are facing many problems, including loss of job, earning in Middle Eastern and European countries. So remittance inflow of the country will be decreased significantly. Investment income. Investment income of the banking industry is feared to fall significantly to the impact of COVID-19. Moreover, Bangladesh Bank has fixed rate of investment at 9% with effect from April 2020. Meanwhile, Central Bank instructed all banks to transfer all Bangladesh Bank. Meanwhile, Central Bank instructed all banks to transfer all profit against investment for 2 months into block account. Overdue investment may rise of banks' dues. Operating profit. It is reported in the news media that operating profit of the banking sector will fall by 30 to 40% in the year for overall business disruption and income shrinkage due to COVID-19 pandemic. Others. Minimum capital requirement MCR of the bank as per Basel III will increase due to increase of risk-weighted asset. Liquidity crisis also wipe out trust of the depositors. All this will impact in the downtrend market value of the stocks of the bank, which will come. Another risk of the bank is reputation risk. Camel setting and credit rating of the bank will deteriorate, ultimately weaken the position of the bank. Steps, action to be taken. Government, bankers, policymakers, as well as businessmen have to work simultaneously to overcome the possible risks of the bank. Proper utilization of stimulus package. Government has already set different fiscal and monetary policy instantly. Bank has set proper portfolio management program in consistence with the government. Third sector as well as emergency sector must get priority in case of investment. Bank may increase investment in SME sector, agriculture sector and export-oriented industry and local industries. Discourage or may reduce investment on import of luxury or unnecessary or less important goods for certain time period and also reduce investment in less priority sector. Bank has to boost up recovery process. Central Bank may initiate restructure policy of the existing borrowers who are genuinely affected by the coronavirus. Bank may extend the repayment period by resizing the installment considering the borrower present repayment capacity. Different attractive deposit product may introduce to keep in fund flow. Government has to ensure that fund of government, different government, semi-government and autonomous body are deposited in different banks at prescribed rate of the bank. Borrower should create mentally to repay the bank liability in time. Government has to update the different law and rules relating to recovery. Setting up a plan for recovery the economy for 2 or 3 years. Next budget would be COVID-19 sensitive budget. All economic activities should be started gradually, adhering to hygiene rules and following strategic plan, but starting all activities without any plan may need to shut down again in future. To implement action plan of government, all corruption and irregularity should be taken seriously to avoid mass unemployment, new entrepreneur, first line investment may be encouraged. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
In the meantime, we may invite our next speaker if he's not back. So I would like to request Mr. Zafar Alam to start with presentation. Mr. Zafar Alam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I'd like to thank organizer of the international seminar Quest and JoraShako Communication Limited, especially in this situation, all over the world, including our Bangladesh. Mr. Kabir Hassan, in his keynote, elaborately presented present situation of coronavirus COVID, which is initiated at the last time of 2019 in China. However, coronavirus COVID-19 is not only the problem of Bangladesh economy, but it is spread all over the world, all corner all over the world, and it hits all area of human life, including health, economy, tourism, banking, every area of human life. And coronavirus, novel coronavirus, may hit the world. It was very unexpected, not assumed. However, actually, COVID-19 collapsed life of the world, life of the economy, life of the man, everything. So it is very difficult to comprehend how economy loss, what effect of the coronavirus not yet determined, not yet fixed. We all know that when it will be ended, nobody knows, including whole World Health Organization and all other thinkers. What will be the next? We know or don't know. How are you in Bangladesh context? Our organizer today our topic is the possible impact of COVID-19 on Islamic finance industry in Bangladesh. I think it is very difficult to differentiate Islamic economy and conventional economy or the other economies separately, because Mr. Kabir Hassan rightly noted that there is no separate law for Islamic banking in Bangladesh. We know Islamic banking in Bangladesh started in 1983, and Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited is the first Islamic bank, Sharia-based bank in Bangladesh. Although at present there is 10 full-fledged Islamic bank in Bangladesh, and there is 6 Islamic insurance and some non-banking financial institutions also prevailing in Bangladesh. And Islamic banks holding a remarkable position in Bangladesh. 25% of deposit holding Islamic banks. And remittance, at least 50% remittance coming to Bangladesh through Islamic banks, including IBBL. IBBL alone holding 30 to 35% of remittance routing from through IBBL. However, in this situation, what will be the position of the bank? This is the main topic is today. It is the concern subject for us. Coronavirus actually deteriorating in all areas, all levels, including banks, all other capital market, money market, health sector, every sector of Bangladesh hits coronavirus. So it is very difficult to assume how we can recover the situation. Actually, corona virus in Bangladesh now in a peak. And what will be our fate? Only Allah knows. So, where we are going, it is very difficult to discuss. However, our government has taken different initiative, decision to face the situation, to overcome the situation. So far, I know our government and Bangladesh Bank issues at least 20 circulars, decisions to face the situation and overcome the present situation. We know our export concentration depends 3, 5, 6 items, including RMG, leather goods, jute goods, etc. And we know our garments factories seriously affected by the coronas. And very recently, President of BGME says job cutting from June, July. It is a very red signal for Bangladesh economy, and it will affect social stability. If garments employee lost their job, our social there is social instability may be occurred. However, Islamic banking today, there is a Islamic banking has a good aspect, because Islamic banking Mr. Kabir Hassan rightly says it is PLS system, profit and loss sharing. And we know Islamic banking collect fund in two ways. One is PLS, profit and loss sharing, that is Mudaraba. Another is Alawadiya, current account. That current account, there is no possibility to loss. So, in conflict situation, if bank loss, it will participate both client and bank. So, I think Islamic Bank position will not deteriorate in future. However, Islamic Bank's defense on profit loss sharing, so Islamic Bank comparatively will do better in this situation also. However, I like in this situation, I have no time, we have to emphasize on agriculture and agriculture-based industry, because without food, we cannot live. So then we have to emphasize for employment, and government has to take in, we have to take in for employment, not to cut job. And we have to support export, especially as garments, and we have to ensure remittance. Very recently, huge our brothers who residing outside, they are losing their job. Government has to take in to retain their growth. However, I think this situation will go over by very pragmatic decision by the government as well as banking sector, Bangladesh Bank. We can go and face the situation, inshallah. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you, Mr. Jafar Alam sir, for your nice and valuable speech. Now, would like to go to Australia to Mr. Dr. Rahman sir. Rahman sir is the Vice President, Australian Academy of Business Leadership, Australia. Sir, I would like to request to deliver his speech. Please, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Having all these experts in the panel, I do not have the audacity to speak on Bangladesh economy or the Islamic banking sector. However, with some knowledge of corporate social responsibility activities, because I did my PhD on CSR, so I have some knowledge. So I will say a few words how CSR may play some role as an aftermath of COVID-19 situation. Already we have got thorough discussion from Professor Kabir Hassan how the COVID situation is impacting in Bangladesh. So now I will just highlight, before I go to CSR, I will highlight the economic challenges. Already Professor Kabir Hassan highlighted, but also I'm saying from my words, first challenge is the falling revenue from RNG industry. The RNG industry is one of the most prominent contributors to the economic development of Bangladesh. It is already confronting a total impact of order cancellation amounting US $1.5 billion. So if we look further, falling growth of remittance, the outbreak of COVID-19 forced Bangladesh expatriates working in several countries in Middle East, Asia, Europe, Australia, and United States to return their homes, and the stern impact of the disease, so that there is a significant disruption in the flow of remittance even after existing 2% stimuli offered by the government. Though the foreign exchange reserve, as Professor Hassan said, that still it looks good. I looked at the foreign exchange reserve of Bangladesh Bank, which was in 2018-19 fiscal year, it was 3.1 trillion, and as of now in 2019-20 May it is 3.3 trillion. So apparently when you look at the foreign exchange reserve, it may appear that foreign exchange reserve is in good shape. But what is happening, just if we look at the remittance, how it is impacted, 2017-18 fiscal year in May, the remittance flow was 125 billion Bangladeshi taka. 2018-19, it was 147 billion, but in April 17-18, it was 110. April 18-19, it was 120. But in April 19-20, like April this year, we found it's only 92 billion taka.
I think the microphone is stuck now, so we may wait for a few seconds. So until he's back, may we request the next speaker, Professor Muzahidul Islam. So then we can give him the microphone when he's back to complete his.
Assalamu alaikum. Seminar is on impact of COVID-19 on financial institutions, especially Islamic financial institutions in Bangladesh. But my topic, as advised by the organizers, is lesson from COVID-19. So to me, it is a little bit surprising. A seminar based on a topic. I am, in fact, an outsider in this seminar. Anyway, I have to speak on my topic. Lesson from COVID-19. First of all, to my observation, COVID-19 has again proved the supremacy of Allah Almighty and the humbleness of we, the human being. How weak we are, and definitely Allah is a supreme power, and the whole world is fighting with a non-visible virus. So Islamically, we think this is a sort of punishment from Allah Almighty, and it is the Islamic explanation of this COVID-19. We have to understand Islamically, the punishment is given based on the nature of crime. When the crime is based on the nature of crime, when the crime is done locally, Allah give punishment on that locality or that community. But when the crime is done globally, then the punishment is also given globally. Now it is the age of global economy. So we see all the crimes, most of the crimes are globally performed. For example, if you talk about sexuality, which is a crime to Islamic viewpoint, from Islamic viewpoint, now most of the world, most of the countries of the world are affected by this sexual videos, etc. A family in Western world, they are making a film, video, and now they are circulating with the help of this modern instrument that is online. So our children are affected with these nonsense videos. So all the crimes are performed globally. So Allah has punished us globally. Second teaching from this COVID-19 we have is that we have to build a society that is based on brotherhood, cooperation, and helping each other. In fact, we, the selfish human being, we have created a society, we have built a society that is based on selfishness. We are very much selfish. We don't care for others. We don't care for nature. We don't care for environment. We are just like a mad. We are gathering resources unnecessary. So this is a great mistake for individual, for society, and for the whole world. We have to take lesson that we are concentrating well within few hands. Only 5 persons are holding the 50% of the resources of the world. This is simply undesirable. So if the people who are controlling the world, if they don't share their resources with other people, those who are disadvantaged, those who are ill-fed, then same occurrence will happen again and again. Pandemic will grab the world. So we have to share our resources. We have to share our amenities with all other brothers and sisters, irrespective of territory, sex, religion, and language. We have to share our resources. Third lesson we can observe from this pandemic is that there is no specific consideration for any people to Allah Almighty. You see, this corona virus not only attacked poor people, not only attacked middle class, it also attacked elite class, those who are in the top rank. They are also affected equally and sometimes more seriously. So it must be a lesson for human being that in the day of judgment, there will be no discrepancy. Those who are so-called status or the people in this world and those who have no status or small status will be treated equally based on their performance, based on their deeds. So no scope for special consideration for special people. Corona or COVID-19 has given us this lesson. Then we can learn from this COVID-19 that we should be living or leading a very clean life, disciplined life, and there is no scope for just be reckless. And we must also make a difference between halal and haram, permitted and non-permitted or prohibited. Islam permitted foods that are hygienists and that are healthy. But we know there are some nations who don't care, who don't differentiate between halal and haram. And this pandemic, as we are reported, has started from taking prohibited foods. If it is true, then the world must learn from this pandemic that we have to be very careful in selecting our food. We should be very selective, and we should not be just ignoring the divine guidance in taking foods and other amenities. We have to be very clean, and Allah has said in the Quran, Inna Allah yuhibbu tawabin wa yuhibbul mutatahhirin. If you look at the rituals of Islam, everywhere, in prayer, in fooding, everywhere, Islam emphasizes on cleanliness. So, the world must learn from cleanliness is very much important for safety of our life and the society. If we don't care,
Professor Muzahidul Islam, sir. Professor Muzahidul Islam, sir. Sir, you are having 1 minute more, please, sir.
but you should give the time limit beforehand. Anyway, if we look at the global environment, because of industrial smoking and smoking from our vehicles, the whole environment is polluted, and this has caused this pandemic. So everybody should be very, very careful about environment. And if we don't take care of environment, the whole civilization will be affected. This is the lesson of this pandemic. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Muzahidul Islam, sir, for your nice speech. Now we're going to again Shafiqur Rahman, sir, to finish his remaining speech. Mr. Shafiqur Rahman, sir. Please, sir, please.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity again. Economic impact is already there, and couple of causes I was telling. One of them was volatility in the capital market. You all know that, like, because of last more than 2 months, the capital market was closed, and even when it opened, the impact we have already observed, that outcome is very, very poor. The transaction and other stuff. And then another issue is constant increase of trade deficit because of our export is now going down, and that will immediately impact on our trade deficit, and it will be high and high. In addition to that, one that is not directly related to COVID, but that is, we are all watching that many investment is going away from China to many countries in the world. But why that is not coming to Bangladesh? Because if you look at Bangladesh's business-friendly ranking, you will find that we are still behind, so that investors do not get much confidence to come to Bangladesh. Also, the last thing, but not the least, is the COVID-19 situation will create further unemployment in Bangladesh. So if we consider all these impacts, now I will talk about how these situations can be addressed. Already, Bangladesh government has taken a number of measures. International organizations like World Bank, ADB, WHO, donor agencies, they are coming forward to assist Bangladesh during this COVID-19 situation. Now I will come to my point because I told you in the beginning that I will talk about the corporate social responsibility activities of Islamic banks in Bangladesh. 2018, they spent about 400. 2019, they spent about 300 crore. So on an average, every year, Islamic banks are spending 300 to 400 crore taka. So now the solution is I personally talked to almost all head of CSRs of Islamic banks in Bangladesh. And they told me that one of the major problem is there is no common forum of Islamic bank CSR initiatives. I repeat, there is no common forum of CSR initiatives of Islamic banks in Bangladesh. As a result, some initiatives they can take jointly and that can give better results. Like there is a disaster in one particular area of Bangladesh and everyone is running there with food, but they may need food, then they may need medicine, they may need shelter. So we should, like, all the banks may work together. I'm not saying they should work together because I am not in a position to advise them. So I'm telling from my point of view. Another part is because of the COVID-19 situation, many people in Bangladesh, like middle class people, they will become lower middle class people. Lower middle class people will become very poor. So at that situation, banks may consider strategic CSR initiative, which means for this particular group, bank can lower the service charge. Bank may lower the service charge, and that can be another CSR to these vulnerable groups. Those will be impacted by COVID-19. Finally, I will tell that in addition, because the banks are spending 300 to 400 crore taka every year, rather spending the whole money, at least 1/3 or 1/4, they can distribute as a social business model. So that when you distribute this money, poor people do business and return the money over a period of time, so that you can reuse the money, revolve the fund. So if I conclude, I would like to thank everyone. I said 3 things that Islamic banks in Bangladesh, those who are doing CSR, almost all of them are doing CSR. They should work together, find out a common platform. And today we have some policymakers are here. This is a great opportunity for me to speak in front of them. So in one platform, they can work together. They can bring better results for Bangladesh. And if they look at to the poor people as an aftermath of COVID-19, they can have some strategic CSR, means they can reduce the service charge for those particular groups when they give loan. And finally, I suggested a social business model of CSR, so that when you distribute money, some portion of money you can get back over a period of time and can reuse. This is how the Islamic banking sector, Islamic economy, and the citizens of this country can be benefited out of these initiatives. I am not sure how long this COVID-19 situation will last, but hope this will over in a short period of time, and we all will be able to breathe normally. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Shafiqur Rahman, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman. Now I would like to go, please, Dr. Manjur Elahi, Associate Professor, National University. Please, you are requested to deliver your speech.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My topic of discussion now, the COVID-19 response through Maqasid al-Sharia, the role of Islamic banks in Bangladesh. I'll try to cover it, inshallah, by 10 minutes if I'll be given this time, inshallah. The world is facing a global pandemic because of coronavirus disease, COVID-19, this time by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The impact of it at global level is very severe, with 6,702,699 confirmed cases and 393,212 confirmed deaths at 215 countries till yesterday, according to Worldometer. Preservation of life is one of the fundamental objectives of Islam and its Sharia law. it is a goal of everything related to Islam. As the COVID-19 pandemic is primarily an earthly problem, so the efforts for saving, preserving, and promoting the sacredness of human life must spread across all life sectors. Doing so during the COVID-19 pandemic should merely be part of a bigger and perennial struggle. That means that the intensity and scale of the strategies intended to combat COVID-19 should be replicated in other critical life segments as well. We should aim to save and preserve in different ways the human life. Here, from this perspective, Maqasid al-Sharia paradigm can be used as potential response to a COVID-19 pandemic crisis. In general, Muslim jurists agreed that the greatest Maqasid al-Sharia is to serve the public interests of human beings and to prevent harm from them. The main objective of Sharia is governed by the principles and concepts of mercy and guidance, as mentioned in Surah Al-Anbiya, verse number 107, and in Surah Yunus, verse number 57. Thus, all aspects of human life must conform to the objectives of Sharia based on its priorities, namely essentials or al-daruriyat, complementary or al-hajiyat, and embellishment or at-tahsiniyat. Preservation of life is one of the most essential priorities in the objectives of Sharia. According to Ibn Ashur, in his book, Maqasid al-Sharia al-Islamiyya, the objectives of Sharia invariably includes preserving the social order of the community and ensuring its healthy progress by promoting the well-being and virtue of the human being. The most important objectives of Sharia is to establish justice, eliminate prejudice, and alleviate hardship. For Al-Ghazali, the importance of preservation of the aims of the Sharia is the fundamental meaning of maslaha. For that reason, according to Imam Shatibi, maslaha is a principle which concerns the subsistence of human life, the completion of man's livelihood, and the acquisition of what his emotional and intellectual qualities require of him, as an absolute sense, including the administration of justice and worship. So it can be said confidently that solving the COVID-19 crisis are in tandem with the objectives of Sharia and principle of maslaha. In times of harsh conditions brought by COVID-19, policy aids, charity funds can play a vital role, and for some, a lifeline in preserving one's livelihood. The situation may demand the Sharia rules of necessity, which have an inbuilt universality that prevents any division based on race, color, and creed. Therefore, as one of the 5 essentials of Sharia, the preservation of life, regardless whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims, should remain one of the highest priorities of policymakers, institutions, and society as a whole. Now, I want to highlight some challenges of Islamic banks, and then we'll try to recommend some roles for Islamic banks in Bangladesh in this era. The COVID-19 pandemic and economic lockdowns have severely hurt global economic activity. Small and medium-sized enterprises are particularly vulnerable, and many of them are already on the verge of collapse. In these circumstances, Islamic banking system faces some special challenges, particularly in Bangladesh. Islamic banks are now in front of some new problems in addition to some former challenges. We can conclude them in below. I concluded in 4 challenges. Number 1, while the COVID-19 crisis has created immense human suffering, a diverse and inclusive set of actions should be taken to overcome the present situation. In fact, COVID-19 establishes a new platform for evaluating how Islamic banking responds to economic chaos. Number 2, due to COVID-19 crisis, Bangladesh government declared a stimulus package and published a unique circular. That means only one circular For the conventional banks as well as for Islamic banks under refinance scheme with a low interest or profit. Observing this circular, it is clear that the instructions of this package should be different for Islamic banks to be feasible for Islamic banking system. So in this crisis moment, using this package would not be in accordance with Islamic Sharia law. Number three, like other conventional banks, Islamic banks are also supposed to give the chance for rescheduling to big clients who defaulted due to present crisis of COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas conventional system of rescheduling is not compliant with Islamic Sharia, in fact, they're lacking of a complete Sharia-based act from our central bank for the Islamic banks in Bangladesh, which causes from time to time inconsistency of Sharia compliance in some areas of Islamic banking service. Number four, all Islamic banks consist of an independent Sharia board intended to oversee and verify the conformity of the bank's behaviors with their interpretation of Sharia law. The differences in interpretation and by extension, differences in banking policy lead to contradictory solution among Sharia boards. The lack of an overarching body in Islamic banking sector in Bangladesh and the resulting ambiguity of a correct operation of the Islamic bank impedes the success of the system in terms of both its reach and prolonged adherence to the bank's fundamental principles. Now, what can be the role of Islamic banks in Bangladesh in COVID-19 era? Under these dire circumstances, there is an urgent need to explore all possible options to mitigate the impact of the outbreak and reboot economies post-COVID-19. Islamic banks, along with Islamic finance, through its inherent orientation towards supporting the real sector, will have a key role to play. Various Islamic finance instruments can be used to support the recovery force with a particular focus on those with significant or growing Islamic financial sectors. The intermediate priorities identified in the response include economic aids and supports, health system support, inclusive and integrated crisis management and response, and strengthening investment policy with easy and feasible terms and conditions. Islamic Banks of Bangladesh can be a part of the COVID-19 response through a range of financing instruments well suited for each stage. The financing of equipment, vehicles, and other sources of livelihood and trade finance are key mechanisms by which Islamic banks and financial institutions can support recovery. Aligning their financing activities with the SDGs is a significant opportunity for Islamic banks. In 2018, the Al Baraka Banking Group launched a collaboration with UNDP that seeks to align over $600 million of its financing portfolio with SDGs in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Europe. The coronavirus pandemic makes such initiatives all the more urgent, and especially in Bangladesh also. Impact investing, private investment prioritizing business with social impact can play a central role in the recovery. At last, I'll also recommend that exploring social... Yes. 1 minute.
Please say.
Okay. Exploring social investments in this pandemic era can be another important role for Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions and entrepreneurs in Bangladesh. Besides proper use of zakat and waqf tools, social sukuk can be used to overcome the health hazard and to ensure the social development in Bangladesh. COVID-19 has highlighted the need for a paradigm shift on public service and financial disparities. Islamic banks are well positioned to support the overhaul of public financial management systems and the strengthening of health, education, and food security infrastructures as they work to fulfill the objectives of Islamic Sharia to ensure the benefit for the whole humankind. Towards this end, governments and multilateral institutions should explore the potential of pandemic sukuk, a new asset that targets both conventional and Islamic investors. Jazakumullah khair. Wa sallallahu sallam ala nabiyana Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Manjur Ilahi, for your valuable speech, and Jazakumullahu khairan fid-darain. Dear viewers, you are watching international online seminar arranged by Quest and JoraShako, and the subject of the seminar is the COVID-19 impact on Islamic banks in Bangladesh, challenge and the way forward. Now I would like to go to UK to our chief guest, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, Sharjah Chair in Islamic Law and Finance, Business School, Durham University. I would like to request our chief guest, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, to deliver his valuable speech. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First of all, I want to start by thanking the organizers for inviting me to this international seminar on an important topic of dealing with the challenges that Islamic banks face and charting out the appropriate responses. As you see, there are two themes to the topic. First, identifying the challenges, and then talking about how to move forward more in a futuristic way. Now, different speakers, including Professor Ataur Belal and Professor Kabir Hassan, and also all the discussants, they have actually covered various issues related to both challenges and way forward. My 10-minute talk will focus on mainly on the way forward in terms of Islamic finance, Islamic banking in the post-COVID area. Now, while the COVID-19 lockdown has created economic and social disruptions, it also gives everyone the opportunity to pause and think how to create a new and better future. Recognizing that the origins of the pandemic lie in human greed and the business models which focus on unabated profits maximization, and also, as was mentioned, on the assault on the environment and nature, which has actually created severe income and wealth inequalities. So the lockdown has now shown that this current model actually is not sustainable and has enormous risks and costs. The pandemic gives everyone an opportunity to change course towards a new model of sustainable development that balances the needs of all humans on the one hand and between humans and nature on the other. Now, in theory, the values and principles of Islamic finance, as was mentioned by different speakers, it provides a framework that can contribute to solving some of the challenges in the COVID-19 era. The overall notion of Maqasid Sharia, which was just mentioned, gives Islamic finance social orientation, and the Islamic contractual principles ensures justice, and they encourage risk-sharing financing that are linked to the real economy. Although Islamic finance has grown significantly globally, the practice has been criticized for not using business models, or for using actually business models and products that are very similar to the conventional banking sector. The industry is censored for focusing on increasing shareholders' returns by mainly using debt-based products. So in light of this new reality of COVID-19, given the values and principles of Islamic finance, we can think of Islamic banking playing an important role and lead in contributing to a new model that can help contribute to an equitable and sustainable development model. This would be actually reflecting the values and principles of Islamic finance. Now, from the discussions, we can look forward and identify 4 specific areas in which Islamic banks can play a transformative role in further, in terms of meeting the challenges of COVID-19. The first is the mission. Basically, there is a need to reform the mission. The mission of the dominant banking model is to focus on increasing profits of shareholders. I think this was mentioned by Professor Ataur Belal. The achieving the social and sustainable goals will require redefining corporate purpose to achieve triple bottom line by incorporating not only profit, but also people and planet. While the people component represents social dimension of Islamic banks, and this will be reflected in enhancing financial inclusion and providing financing to micro, small, medium enterprises. The planet component can be implemented by incorporating climate, environmental risks and opportunities in decision making. The second issue, which I think a lot of people talked about, not too many, but some people talked about, was related to the operational issues. And this relates to introducing innovative technology in operational models. COVID-19 has highlighted the role of technology that can play in providing goods and services, and especially in the lockdown. I think the industries and sectors which are basically booming relates to those which are technology based. So in the era of lockdowns and social distancing, we really need to have, in terms of the future, try to incorporate the technology into operational business models. In finance, this would mean going into fintech, and this using technology and fintech will help financial inclusion, because the traditional lending models are a barrier for accessing finance to the micro and small enterprises. And Islamic finance can come up with fintech-based solutions to help promote the recovery and improve lives of people in the post-COVID area. The third area which needs to be looked into is the markets. Again, the COVID pandemic has highlighted the structural changes that will take place in the economy. With certain sectors will be actually losing jobs and importance, and there is a worry that some of the jobs which are lost in this pandemic will never come back. And on the other hand, there are other sectors which will gain importance. In particular, sectors that become important will be, for example, the e-commerce, the health sector, and also the green economy. So moving forward, Islamic banks would need to prioritize these sectors and contribute to the economic transformation to strengthen the social fabric and help contribute positively to climate and environment. Finally, the fourth element is to look at the products. One of the key weaknesses of the conventional financial sector is its dependence on excessive debt. Responses to the COVID-19 in most countries have been to provide more credit to sustain the operations of firms. While this will solve the short-term problems of sustainability of these firms, excessive debt is likely to increase the fragility in the longer term. One way in which Islamic banks can resolve the liquidity problems of existing businesses during COVID-19 is to provide equity-type products that can potentially sustain operations during the pandemic and enhance stability in the future. Furthermore, as was mentioned by quite a few speakers, innovative models of blended finance that combines for-profit and philanthropic finance, which includes zakah and waqf, can also be used to help the poorer sections of the population and achieve social goals. After the global financial crisis of 2008, the unique features of Islamic finance were highlighted as possible remedies to the problems of conventional finance that were responsible for the crisis. But instead of providing innovative solutions, Islamic financial sector ended up imitating the same conventional products and models that caused the crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic provides another opportunity to highlight the strengths of Islamic finance to resolve some of the critical problems facing different economies. The question is whether Islamic financial sector in general and Islamic banking in particular will rise to the occasion and come up with innovative models that can solve the financial problems facing humanity in the COVID area. Bangladesh has been actually in the forefront. So Bangladesh has actually been in the forefront of developing innovative models of social enterprises globally. For example, in Islamic banking, the RDS program of Islamic Bank Bangladesh is unique and a good example for other Islamic banks. I hope that the discussions in this international seminar will lead to providing workable models that Islamic banks in Bangladesh can implement, which can serve as examples for the rest of the world. With this hope, I thank the organizers again for organizing this timely event. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for your nice, valuable speech. Dear guests, we are expressing our sorrow once again for breaking the serials of discussions for some technical and other issues. Dear guests and viewers, thank you for being with us. And you are watching online international seminar on the COVID-19 impact on Islamic banks in Bangladesh, challenges and the way forward, arranged by Post and JoraShako. We are going to our honorable president of the seminar, Dr. Abu Umar Faruq Ahmed sir. Sir, you are requested to deliver your speech and to announce the ending and conclude the whole seminar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Kabir Hassan, honorable chief guest, Professor Habib Ahmad, respected special guest or inaugurator, Professor Ataur Rahman, dearest discussants, participants, and the audience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think what I'm going to say have already been discussed by the honorable discussants and the chief guest and the main keynote speaker. So I'm not going to repeat them, but if the reference comes, then I will mention, inshallah. So no one could have predicted the unprecedented turmoil caused by COVID-19 pandemic, which has interrupted economies and environments across the globe. And while it would be easy to point fingers at consumer-facing companies caught unawares, what is important now is rebuilding the global trade network by putting into practice the harsh lessons the entire world is forcibly learning now. As the global development community responds to the COVID-19 pandemic, a diverse and inclusive set of stakeholders must be engaged to address the enormous challenges. While the crisis has created immense human suffering, it has also sparked worldwide action from institutions and people eager to help. To combat the outbreak of COVID-19 that has severely impacted the world's economy, the Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions are seemingly considering a more lenient approach concerning their potential headcount reduction unless the crisis deepens further. Islamic finance complies, as our honorable discussion, Professor Munzu Ilahi referred to that, with the maqasid of Sharia, or the key objectives of 4 noble Sharia, These objectives broadly revolve around the protection of faith, life, intellect, wealth, and dignity. In response, the United Nations Secretary General has emphasized on tackling the health emergency, focusing on social impact in the response and recovery, and helping countries recover more sustainably for the long term. The immediate priorities identified in the response of United Nations include health system support, inclusive and integrated crisis management and response. Islamic finance in the globe in general and in Bangladesh in particular can be part of the COVID-19 response through a range of financing instruments well suited for each stage. Firstly, Islamic banks can offer emergency support in the short term. In this regard, Zakah can be an important component of national and NGO emergency support programs. Donors typically require that Zakah be dispersed within 1 year of being given. This focus on immediate benefit is well suited for crisis response. Zakah donors support both the poor and the economically insecure, an area of increased need in the pandemic. Zakah donors often give cash transfers, which can be especially important in emergencies. Individual sadaqah or philanthropic charity is a broad tool that can be used to support healthcare, food, and other immediate needs. Corporate charity is part of corporate social responsibility, as has been referred to our another respected discussant, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, can also be a way for businesses to contribute not only money, but also goods and expertise. United Nations Partnership Basnas, Indonesia's national Zakah collection agency, has been in place since 2017. Islamic banks can take this collaboration as an example of how Zakah stakeholders can systematically link their projects with the Sustainable Development Goals, including in response to crisis. United Nations, another partnership with the World Zakah Forum, launched in 2019, lays the groundwork for members to work with United Nations on Sustainable Development Goals aligned worldwide. Secondly, Islamic banks can make response and recovery in the medium run. The financing of equipment, vehicles, and other sources of livelihood and trade finance are key mechanisms by which Islamic banks can support recovery. Aligning their financing activities with the Sustainable Development Goals is a significant opportunity for Islamic banks. In 2018, the Al Baraka Banking Group launched a collaboration with United Nations Development Program that seeks to align over $600 million of its financing portfolio with the Sustainable Development Goals in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Europe. The coronavirus pandemic makes such initiatives all the more urgent. Thirdly, Islamic banks can make long-term recovery and resilience. Sustainable Development Goals aligned sukuk can be an important source of long-term capital for governments and companies engaged in the COVID response and recovery. United Nations support of the government of Indonesia's Green Sukuk, including a $1.25 billion issuance in 2018, is a prime example of how issuers can partner with United Nations to identify, track, and report on their Sustainable Development Goals impact. They provide a decade of funding for Indonesia's National Sustainable Development Goals plan. Waqf endowments can also, in many contexts, be important contributors to long-term resilience. Financial or non-financial assets, such as land or buildings, are permanently dedicated to social purposes. This can be an important way for stakeholders to contribute to social infrastructure that serves the sustainable development goals. This is a time for new ways to help tackle the devastation of COVID-19 and invest in sustainable development. Islamic finance has the tools for each stage of the response. Last but not the least, it is expected that Islamic banks can help the respective countries navigate the current situation through taking some preventive measures, such as using interest-free instruments and augmenting their corporate social responsibility activities. These can be reflected in what I have already mentioned at the outset. Besides, Islamic banks can also grant Qard Hassan or benevolent loans for welfare purposes or to bridge short-term funding requirements where the borrowers are required to repay only the principal. As corporations and individuals grapple with the impact of COVID-19 on their revenue, Qard Hassan could provide breathing space until the environment stabilizes. The Islamic banks can also render their help through cash waqf in the current circumstances by providing affordable housing solutions or access to health care and education for people that might have lost a portion of their income, including their jobs. These are a few suggestions as food for thought for Islamic banks in Bangladesh, given the ongoing corona situation that the industry is now facing. Finally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to organizers and sponsors to organize such an important and very timely event and to provide the audience with the opportunity of joining it in the webinar from all parts of the world. I hope this international seminar will thoroughly examine all the related issues and provide practical solutions for the active considerations and implementation by the Islamic banks in Bangladesh. I believe this would also help their peers in the rest of the world to find proper guidelines on the issue. I earnestly pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this seminar will achieve the success in reaching its loftiest goals. With that, I declare the ending of this international seminar. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
Thank you everyone. Dear viewers, you have watched until now online international seminar arranged by Quest and JoraShako on the COVID-19 impact on Islamic banks in Bangladesh, challenges and the way forward. And thank you for being with us. Thank you all our guests and viewers. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
See you inshallah next time in another event, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu
Thank you.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.